Hello folks. So today we're going to start on the turbo of the DSM, known as Eagle Talon to most folks out there. I'm probably going to do a story on Eagle Talon since I'm so involved in them. Actually, that's an Eclipse white one there that is not the one that we're going to work on. We're going to work on that one up there. So we'll just get started. Obviously got to move a few things, so we'll just start with that. Hello all, welcome to Slip in Time. So this is kind of my debut real episode. I had my intro episode before this. You can certainly go back and look at that to see what this channel is about. I'm going to start with one of the cars I've been most passionate about, and the reason being is a long story. I'll try to shorten it up. I may probably give little tidbits as time goes on and maybe even do a story on what these cars are. So I guess I'm going to start with what a DSM is, a kind of a short version of it. DSM starts with Diamond Star Motors. Diamond Star Motors was a conglomeration with basically Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth, and Mitsubishi together, an alliance they had. So try to making this quick a bit, just to let you know kind of where I'm coming from too. So I've been throughout the history of DSMs in general, and it was also part of the tuner scene way back. You can call it the tuner scene, but these, everyone knows, a lot of you probably know about the 4G63 that's in them that became on the Evo's extremely robust 4-cylinder. I actually test drove a Plymouth Laser in 1989, fall of at a very young age, and it was front wheel drive. At the time, steering torque was crazy. We weren't used to that. But I come from a time a little before that when 4-cylinders were not supposed to be fast, and turbochargers are supposed to be laggy as heck. Now, on today's standards, they are, but back then, and some of the comparisons, like the 2.2s that they had out in the Chrysler Daytonas and that were horrible for lag, and you couldn't do a lot of performance enhancements because they grenade. These cars are amazing, and I actually had a Fox Body Mustang before that, and for those of you that love Fox Bodies, yeah, they're kind of a cool time in the era they were, but they honestly were, and if you've ever drove one in its stock raw form, they had no traction, no handling. They had some what we called raw horsepower. I think they were upwards towards 200 horsepower. When you test drove something like, we'll call it some of the Japanese models out there, and for me it was the DSM, we'll call it, the Eagle Talon at the time. It was amazing how much of a better car they were all around. In today's standards, again, they aren't good for cornering maybe, but back then, nobody even bought cars for cornering. They just tried to go in a straight line, and hopefully they did, and hopefully they picked up some traction. But with the all-wheel drive and what they did to these was crazy. So I had to have one, and my loan was more than any other living cost I had at the time, but I had to have one. And little did any of us know what they would become, what that 4G63 4-cylinder, and it's like a 2JZ of the 6-cylinder world. It's crazy how much horsepower you can get. And you have to think within 10 years of making these faster, a bunch of us at the time were getting them faster and faster, and back when a 14-second car was fast, and people got these into the 9s within 10 years and towards 1,000 horsepower. And you got people today with their V8s, like the C8, for example. People are bragging about how they got 1,000 horsepower out of them, the first one, and that they got into the 10s and maybe the 9s and stuff. But 20 years ago, 30 years ago, these cars could do that if you put a little investment in them as well, just like they're doing with the other cars. So I don't think it's a big deal to get 1,000 horsepower out of a modern, especially a V8. It shouldn't be compared to what these handled. So I got a lot of history I can go because I grew with the scene, a lot of experimentation, a lot of people we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't even have wideband O2 sensors back then, so we were knocking, and they were amazing what they took. So that's a whole other thing. I just want to point out too, I actually have my original 90 that I did buy back then. I have plenty of DSMs right now, and I've had some in the past too. So they have been a bit of a weird passion of mine, just because of what they are. And I'll probably do a story on the following, I guess, of mine that I had and how I used it. I'll probably have a little bit of a session on my 90 original that I still have. I'm very proud to say that I have it since it was brand new. I think the odometer had 3 clicks on it or something when it was taken off the test drive lot when I bought it. Another interesting fact is that when I bought one, they had a front-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive just for test driving purposes. They're both turbocharged, obviously. All-wheel drive it always is. And you never were allowed to drive the one you bought unless you bought it. That was kind of cool. So nobody other than at the factory onto the train or truck or however they got it to the dealer, and then the dealer getting it there was nobody had driven that car, and I got to have it. So, and back then I wish I had pictures of it, because the dealers brought they brought 30 in at a time. It was insane how much they were trying to manufacture these and put them out there. And they had them all lined up, I remember, on the street, which was pretty cool, and had them kind of on an angle on a brick or something. I can't remember, but it was pretty cool. So again, I'll share lots of stories about that. But what you're here to find out is what are we doing today. And this is a bit of a start of a series on this particular car itself. Now, this particular car is extremely special, and why I gave you some of that background about some of the history is that there was a lot of pioneers back there. There's some huge, I call them huge names in our world, in the DSM community, but also in the tuner community out there of what they've done. And this car, in fact, and there's a bit of a sad note on this as well, but this kind of changed hands from original owner to where it is now to, I think it's had 3 or 4 owners, but at least 3 of them now have had, they were part of those early pioneer days. And the person, he's a good friend of mine that I'm working on this for him to help him out, because he's a very busy guy to get it where he wants to be. Acquired it from Pittsburgh. And some of you may be thinking about, if you're into the DSM community, you'll kind of maybe recognize this car already. But this car was last owned by Kurt Brown before the new owner right now. And Kurt Brown, for those that don't know, it is a legacy in what he was able to do with porting. And back when porting was, I think we had to come up with a name called porting of what we did with gasket matching on the head, and he ported the turbos and that. And he was able to bring the stock turbo, one of these, into the 10s. Has the record, I think, for the 14B. He has had many records as well. And if you wanted a head to flow as best it could for these cars, or for 4G63, whether it was an Evo or a DSM, he was the guy. And it was all trial and error and art and expertise what he did. This was his last car that he did, and he never got to where he wanted to because he was a busy guy. He had his own business, which was involving actually doing a lot of stuff with head work and stuff like that. So he through the small community that's left of the die-hard DSMs from the pioneer days, the guy that owns this car now was able to acquire it, and we're going to do some of the things on it that Kurt wanted to do, and plus our own little taste on it, and we'll call it improvement and build upon it. And why I say it's his last car is because Kurt is no longer with us. He died of a very tragic incident about a year ago. It was actually, I think this car was in my shop at the time already when it happened, but he, shortly after this car was purchased from him, he was killed in a hit and run. They eventually caught the guy. He was all hopped up on heroin, and he was out riding his bike. He was a cyclist. A lot of people knew him in the cyclist world as well, so he was a bit of a nut that way too. But he got ran over and died at 51 years old. It was sad for the community. It was a legend lost, we'll call it. I think he had so much to give yet to the community because he did a heck of a job balancing his family and friends and this business and what he loved and turned it into his world. Yeah, so this is, for those in the DSM community, this is Kurt Brown's last build that he did. Now, what are we doing with this car? Well, we're doing a number of things. So, like I said, Kurt had his own thoughts. He was an extremist in trying to get things light. He knew how to make things fast, and he did it with class, no doubt. And there's just some fine-tuning on this, and some usual maintenance I'll probably take you through as well that DSMers that should be doing probably know they should be doing and probably want to maybe have a look at it. There's lots of stuff out there on that, but I'm trying to do a different spin on this. And just so you know, guys, anything I do, I can't do it half-assed. And I say that just because a lot of these cars have been destroyed because, or they have a bad reputation that they're horrible cars and horrible engines because of they break all the time. But to be honest, it's what we put them through and expect out of them that makes them break. Those engines are bulletproof. We're gonna make it better and faster, and I don't know where this car will end up being. It's got to be a streetable car, but it's going to be an all-around pretty cool car, and you'll see how cool it is already and what I'm doing. So for today's episode, there's kind of the usual stages, I guess, to getting the turbo off. Why are we getting the turbo off? And is because we want to ceramic coat it. Want to look at a few things. I actually want to see the porting of the head as well a little bit, and just kind of the stages there. And I'm going to show you how. I don't know if I'll get into this episode, but I'm going to call this a series. As we get into more parts of the series, you'll see kind of how OCD I am in trying to make things perfect and look better. Even if they're used parts, they have to go on looking new. I won't work on anything for anybody unless they do it right. And doing it right is it's got to be darn near perfect, and we got to make it as strong as possible at the time. If you don't want to do that, I'm not your guy. I will not put my name to anything that I know is going to be shoddy or fall apart. So that's just a little bit about me. I would suggest that we get on with it and see what I've done. I will try to get better at this, as I said, but away we go, and pretty excited. The oil, so that's where we start. Oh, we like that stutter box, don't we? I dabbed a little of the oil. I don't know if you can see, but let's see here. Let's see, there's no little cruddies there. Alright, we're going to take the oil filter off. If you notice, I'm just going to move this over. Try and capture any oil over there. This is not a stock oil filter housing. That's where the filter is there. You notice it's facing the front. DSMs actually have a one that sticks out this way sideways. I can't remember where this is from. It's from my Hyundai probably, something. Probably the single overhead cam or the Mighty Max or something. I actually can't remember. I might have to look that up. So, oopsie. I got this crappy thing, but we'll use it nevertheless here. Get this off. Boy, is it ever tight on there. That's ridiculous. Wow. There we go. Not sure what filter that even is. Just trying to get that situated so I catch anything here. Okay. It is a, oh, it's a purulator. I ended up crushing it just trying to get it off. Man, that thing is tight. Huh. Wow. Okay, just gonna let it drain a bit there. So I don't make a mess, which I usually do. Okay. Probably, I'll be putting a Mitsubishi one on after this. I do have some of the K&N ones. I'm gonna actually see. This isn't my car, as I said, so I'll see what the individual wants to do that owns the car. Okay, let's drop this now. There we go. Look at just trying to dig that off. I don't think I like this filter considering how that happened to it. Just taking it off, trying to get it off, so. No doubt. You can see the ring is still on here for some reason. Look at that. I might cut it open. We'll see. I do want to get actually a cutter, but I don't have one. We'll get there. All right. Well, we'll let that drain, and I want to get the antifreeze out, as well out of there. But I want to let the engine cool just a little bit first. So stay tuned for that. All right. She looks pretty good. Let's put her back in. I'll be working on some of this anyway. All right. See, there's a bit of a mess of wires here. I'm going to clean all this up. You can see kind of running from the alternator, but this is all for the pressure meter, oil pressure gauge. So I will clean that up. I won't bore you with the details. I'll just show you when it's all done. All right, I'm going to put this in. This new oil drain. That's for here. It's kind of a nice fancy thing compared to the OEM one. It's got a nice, really strong magnet on it, so I'm going to put that in. Of course, I'm going to get a little bit of oil around that copper gasket there, or crush washer. Okay, and this is 25 foot-pounds, if any of you want to know that. I don't have the pressure, oil pressure sending it on yet, as well as the pressure switch, but I'm going to tackle cleaning up this wire. I've started barely on it already, but I want to disconnect the alternator up here and just hang this down and start making the slicer, this wire here, and do it better. I took the plastic bracket off that kind of covers the positive here on the alternator, but it goes to the battery there, and I'm going to replace that with something else that I got off eBay a while ago for another car. So always disconnect your battery before you work on this, which I already have done. And I have learned the hard way many years ago that if you try to do this in a hurry without doing that, you're bound and determined to arc that wrench when you take that nut off, and you get a nice little spark. And it's not good for many things. Can actually hurt things in your car as well, because you do create a surge current as well that could go other places as well, because it's right direct to the battery. So make sure you do that. Disconnect this to connect to negative. I always do the negative first, so you don't have to risk also when you do the positive first on your, or if you do the positive first on your battery, to shorten that out with your wrench as well. So if you do the negative, then it kind of just opens the loop, and then you're safe to do the positive. So anyway, I disconnected the negative, so there's no power anymore going through with the loop. So we will disconnect that now. All right, so what I'm going to show you is, if you can see this Super 88, this is actually what I use for automotive electrical. And the reason I do is because you can handle fairly high temperatures. I don't know if you can see, there it focuses a little bit, where it can handle up to 105 Celsius, which is 221 Fahrenheit. It's the highest I've ever been able to find, but it works pretty well. Anything other than this for electrical tape, I can't really find much more better than it. And also you're going to see me put some wire loom around it as well. And it's going to look like normal wire loom you might get with some cheap stuff out there. But the stuff I buy is actually high temperature as well, specifically for automotive. It does cost more. Usually you got to special order it, but you don't want to mess around with a vehicle and cause things to melt and electrical problems because of it, possibly, or worse, even catch fire. So make sure you take care of that. Do it right. Okay guys, I'm going to review what I did here. It took a little time because that's what I do, is I take my time. I clean things up, made them look a little neater, obviously, and more functional. So I guess I'll start with, obviously I replaced the wire looms. I can't remember the degrees that it's rated for, but it's specifically for auto. I don't think it's ever used in aircraft. I think they use different stuff, but it was definitely used in the day of actually it's better than what they used back in '90 on the Talon, to be honest. So the this doesn't have a power steering pump anymore. It doesn't have power steering anymore. So I kind of wrapped up the pressure switch for the power steering here. And you can see that I labeled it for anybody who wants to put it in again, so they can know and unwrap that, and that's where it is. I found these on Amazon. These always break. Anybody who's got alternators near heat, DSMs, these always break. So I found these guys on Amazon. If anybody wants to know, they were really cheap actually. China. So far they've lasted, but I've only tried them for the last year or two. We'll see how they do, but they were pretty cheap off Amazon. And so yeah, I redid that. I cleaned everything up because there was a little bit of oil and debris and stuff on them too. And then I took down the oil sending unit for oil pressure. For the gauge, I cleaned that up. Made it nice and tidy here for the wire here, and cleaned up this connector. I take the pins out of any connector, and then I crimp them, but I also solder them as well. Best practice, obviously. I put it behind here, so if there's any kind of wind, it doesn't kind of wave as much. It kind of gets sucked back, protect it a bit. And then I put the pressure switch, which I didn't have before. So I grabbed a part from a parts car because these never really go. Tested fine, cleaned them up. And then I put another connector on here. And that's it. That's what I've just done, spent a bit of time on. And next I'm going to drain the antifreeze, I guess. Just because I want to pull that turbo off. This is the oil drain here, you can see from the bottom. But they also not only have oil cooling, they have the water cooling coming in as well. So you got to drain both. Some people get away with draining the antifreeze and I do things quickly with a plug. Since I'm going to be doing the timing belt and water pump on this a little later, I'm not gonna obviously try that. I gotta drain the radiator anyway. Also on the radiator, you'll see later that I'm gonna do some bend the fins. They're a little bent. Looks like somebody was wrenching. I'll show you that a little later, and they bashed it a bit. So I'll just do the tedious work of bending them back. And obviously removing the radiator gives us a lot more room too. All right, I think I shared this with you already, but just a little closer look of because it was tight, but it didn't matter how tight it was. There's no way that thing should have crushed with the oil wrench that I had. So I've never used any of these Purelator Pier 1 oil filters before. So if any of you have and have any comments on them, please add that below. Given my experience, I don't think I would, seeing how easy they crush. I'll stick with the Mitsubishi OEM for these particular cars. I have used the bigger K&N filters. I know there's controversy on those, on who makes them, but I do like them because they're fatter and bigger and they can kind of not get plugged up. Not that they should. That's just kind of something I think of as, you know, especially in high performance motors, you just want that oil to be flowing well. And if you got more filter, then you got less chance of it ever getting plugged or slowing down because it's getting contaminated to some degree. Yeah, so if whatever oil filter you use, I know I'll get lots of Wix comments. You can't go wrong with Wix. That would be my next choice after that. Just about ready to pull out. Actually, it is ready to pull out. I'll just go over a few things here. I'm gonna be adding this fan from factory. They actually come with an AC fan here. This car does not have AC anymore. It's pretty bare bones now. No power steering, no AC. Still got an alternator. It's not relocated like some put it back there because they get a lot of heat here. This is a 9-inch Spell. I've always had good luck with Spell. I highly recommend them. I've never had one go bad. They're nice low profile, and you won't want to mess around with cooling because turbochargers, especially the bigger they are, the more heat they do. So why I'm taking this turbo off, actually, I think I've talked about it a little bit, but we're going to get these sent away and ceramic coat them properly. We're going to do the exhaust manifold, we're going to do the turbine, and we're going to do the O2 housing as well. We talked about maybe doing the downpipe. I don't know how much that makes a difference, but we may actually do it later on. That's much easier to take off anyway. We're just going to see how this does and with the engine bay temperatures in there. So why I've got this is I was just sizing it because I want to attach it before I put this rad back in. This is an aftermarket rad. It's aluminum. I think it's a Fluidyne. Yeah, it's a Fluidyne. I'm not even sure if you can get these anymore from Fluidyne. You might be able to. They were, they're still to me the best one. A lot of people used them for road racing back in the day when they road raced these cars. People still do. But the Evo and Subis take that on quite a bit better than these cars do. So yeah, also notice this. I always put a sock in wherever fluid may be dripping or could drip. I just don't like fluid going on anything, and no one should. And socks work good because I always leave a tail out where they're in, so that way I know there's something in there. If you plug something right in here, a rag or whatever you've got, and plug it too far in, you may forget, or if someone takes over the job for you, you may not realize that you've plugged that in with something, and then you've actually plugged up your flow because you've put it on and you never realized it was there, and before you realize that there is a problem, you have a problem. In this case, you would probably overheat, and overheating an engine, as we know, is not a good idea, especially if you're not paying attention and run it long enough. So little tip there as well. Another thing, I think you can see it here. I'm just going to make sure you can before I talk about it. Oh yeah, so another thing that I've never seen anybody do this. I've done it. So these 4G63s, especially the more horsepower unit, have a lot of blow by. We're going to be changing actually put a catch can in here and put dash 10 AN fittings on here. We're going to getting a new valve cover or a redone one that's going to actually look pretty nice. It's going to be, well, you'll see it. I'm not even going to talk about it so you see it, but it'll add a lot more to this. So we're going to do that. What I do, and I had it happen once when I was kind of screwing around, and I thought I blew my engine because the dipstick popped and got oil all over my hot engine. Smoke was pouring out of from under the hood in front of me, and I thought I was in big trouble. Then when I looked and seen that it had popped, even though there was oil splatter over, I was very relieved. But then after I was relieved, I had a very clean engine bay. It was a show quality engine bay pretty much, and there was engine oil all over, and I had to clean all that up. You never can get it 100%, no matter how much you try, unless you've taken everything apart again. So you don't want that either. So what I do, and this is kind of my farm days where this is much bigger than this, but we had hitch pins like this, and you can get the little ones. So I just basically, if anybody wants it on a car, DSMs particularly, because I work on those mainly, or the majority I'll say, I just weld on the dipstick tube here, a couple brackets, drill some holes, and these dipsticks are really good for it, and just put it in like that, and oops, and there's no way it'll pop out. Now it might get a little hot when you want to check your oil. Well, that's fine if you need a glove or whatever, but you can do it pretty quick. You know, you let go and then you just put it away, and then it'll cool off pretty fast. It's not too bad. Yeah, I really like that. Some guys have tried springs, some guys have done hose clamps, some people wire it down or whatever. I like this because it's handy and reusable and quick. So take note of that, and good idea if, no matter what car you got. Okay, so I think I'm ready to pull this out. I've got all the connectors, hoses. Had to undo this, some vacuum hoses that are going to the turbocharger a little bit, just to hide things a little bit, basically for the pressure of the compressor here. So we'll just pull this out. Let's see how we do here. And I may have to, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna clear it. I might have to, I gotta remove this anyway. Yeah, she's not ready to go. I gotta remove the lower intercooler pipe, so we're gonna do that right now. intercooler pipe out, and I've got the rat out obviously. So still working on getting that turbo out. That's the main goal here today, but I'm doing a lot of things along the way as well, and also when I put them back together. So we still got the coolant lines for the turbo, and we still got the oil lines as well. So once that happens, then I got to take the downpipe V-clamp out and do that. But these AN fittings are aluminum. So for those that use normal tools in those, I don't know why you have AN fittings, because I mean, I guess I do. I mean, they're first of all, they're much better than just normal factory lines and rubber lines and that. But if you got this, you've invested a lot of money. They're not cheap. Invest in, you know, these are Earls, but it doesn't matter. Simple aluminum wrenches to take them off so you don't scuff them up. At very least, get this is another Amazon thing I found. I think it was Amazon anyway. Just use the crescent wrench. These actually work really good. They're smaller ones than that. For oddball ones that I need, I have that, but I also got a set of Earls that I bought years ago, and they don't nick in any. Of course, they do get scuffed up a little bit time to time. You can always take a Sharpie, like for black for black, red for red, blue for blue, and they're very close. They're close enough that only you will probably notice, and they do work just for the edges and stuff. If you got a really bad nick, well, then you're screwed anyway because you're going to see the nick, but at least it can color it in. That's a suggestion, but you can save yourself a lot of trouble. And with anything on anything you're doing, always have patience. If you don't have patience for this stuff, you're probably going to run into trouble. If you try to be cheap and go around the cheap way, everything has a risk, right? So if you can't afford to play, then, I mean, you can't afford to pay to play, then you can't play. That's the way I look at it. A lot of people, especially DSMs, Hanas, you know, back in the day, we had a lot of money. We didn't know what the hell they were doing. They can take a lot of abuse, but in this day and age, there's enough information out there how to do it right and do it right once, so you don't have to redo and learn from your own mistakes. Learn from others. I made mistakes back then too. So, all right. So I'm going to take these off now, and we'll do some time lapse again. So, me being the first, just starting this, I've got to get better at preserving video. So, what ended up happening is you've seen in the last scene where I was, which was about to pull the turbo assembly off, which it basically attached the exhaust manifold and that. And I did video it, and I've lost the video of showing kind of that, you know, the finale of the video of showing you what I did. I think you get the idea. Please go with the adventure with getting there. I can bore it up for a bit of you. All it was me is pulling it off, taking it off, and I disassembled it. Disassembling is pretty cool. Obviously this is an aftermarket setup. It's Force Performance, if you've heard of them, and I'm sure many of you have if you're watching this. So yeah, I screwed up a little bit there, but you know what? I think you get the idea. I'll do better next time. We're all learning together. If there are things that you wished I had done a little more detail on or had a little more close-up, or if you felt it was just too mundane and I should have skipped some of it, that's cool too. I just need to know what you like to see. So please stick with me, and it's only going to get better. I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, it has to get better, but that's cool too. Bear with me and we'll get there, okay? And this is all about, honestly, me slipping time, enjoying things, what I do, and honestly every day I probably do something that's shop related, creativity or whatever it is, and making things better. And most of it's to do with cars, but some of it might have other things, and repurposing things or repairing things that are pretty cool and making them better. So that's what I like to do. Well, that's going to conclude this first episode of this series on this car. There'll be more to come, obviously, and thank you for watching this first one and seeing where this journey ends up. Gave you little tidbits of what is yet to come, and hope to see you back, slipping some time with me. Thanks so much. Bye.